Hi, everyone. Stefan Schuster here, and welcome to episode 13 of the Journey Running Podcast. Today, we've got a great episode, actually, a very special one. I would say so myself. Today, we are having on Kevin Kolloff. Kevin is an athlete that I coached from April through August for the Leadville 100-mile endurance run. And this is a really special episode, I think, because this is the first time that I'll be having on an athlete who I actually coached myself. So really cool. In this episode, Kevin talks about preparing for his first 100-mile race. He actually ran his first ultra only about 6 or 7 weeks before running the Leadville 100. So we talk a lot about preparation, training, mindset. I think this is overall an awesome episode for anybody who's training for specifically the Leadville 100, but also people who are training for their first 100 in general will get a lot of great tips and advice out of this episode. With that said, Kevin also did an episode with his wife, who has a podcast called Unfiltered with Sarah. So if you really enjoy this episode and want to hear more about Kevin and his story, you can check out that episode on her podcast. And that episode, name for reference, is Conquering the Leadville 100, a glimpse into running 100 miles. Without further ado, I'm going to let Kevin take it away. Thank you all for listening today. And with that said, if anybody's looking for a running coach, feel free to reach out to me at journeyruncoaching.com, or you can reach out to me at journeyrunningllc@gmail.com directly. Without further ado, enjoy this episode. It's a great one. Hope you guys get a lot out of it. All right, Kevin, it's great to have you on the show. We haven't really talked much since Leadville, which was like a month ago from yesterday, I think you finished. How are you feeling?
Diving right into it. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. I'm feeling great. I've lost 3 toenails. My feet are pretty scaly. I was picking some skin off of them this morning while I sat on the couch.
Oh my gosh.
But dude, it was one of the best and craziest things I ever did, and I'm feeling great.
You're feeling great? Have you?
I really am.
You had like a hunting trip planned like a week or 2 after the race. Were you still able to go to that?
I was. Hunting is definitely one of my passions, and my wife and I went out to Grand Junction and did some elk hunting. What was it? Maybe 8 days or 10 days after Leadville.
Yeah.
And she noticed I was a little slow.
How are like your legs feeling after? Because that was your first 100 miler. I was wondering like what's recovery been like week 1, 2, 3 onward, or was it just like fine after 2 weeks? What was it like for you?
Yeah. So I guess real quick on that hunting trip, we're walking up this hill, and I just felt kind of weak. I wasn't sore. It was 8 or 10 days later, and I wasn't necessarily sore. My feet didn't hurt too bad. But I was a lot slower than normal, and I felt weak in my legs. But after Leadville, right away, my body shut down on me, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. As soon as I crossed the finish line, it was my body was like, all right, we're done. Like, time to turn off. And I just felt like I turned off. And then the day after that, feet were the worst part.
Mm-hmm.
Just toes and blisters. Some of the bottom of my feet a little bit were pretty raw. And then, so I went to work 3 days afterwards, or I think it was 2 or 3 days afterwards. And I'm wearing white tennis shoes and white socks. And I'm walking around a meeting with some clients, and I look down, and there's blood soaking through my white socks and my white shoes on my big toe where I'd lost my toenail.
Oh man.
And I'm in the middle of this meeting, just like, oh my goodness. And then I get a bloody nose halfway through the meeting, and I'm just like, and everyone knew what I did because I was talking about it. But it was just like, this is the aftermath of trying to run 100 miles. I'm just bleeding out during this meeting.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy, man. I haven't heard a story like that before.
It was awesome. It's a great story. I love telling it. But other than that, I didn't feel. A few days later, like, I was starting to recover and I could walk, and I don't know, a week later, yeah, I was out hunting and just I don't know the mental pride that I've carried out of Leadville. I felt a lot of self-confidence after doing this race.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so I'm going through a pretty big transition period in my life where I've decided to leave my corporate job of 8 years, hit the road with my wife in an RV, and in doing so, of course, leaving that corporate job. And Leadville came at the perfect time for me. Doing this race on August 19th, my last day of the corporate job was September 1st. And so what I told myself leading into the race was Leadville's the runway to the next chapter of my life, and I need to take off on this runway. And if I can do Leadville, I can do anything. And after completing, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this. And after finishing Leadville, it's given me a lot of confidence stepping into this next chapter of working for myself, working with my wife, growing some of our businesses. Of, hey, I put in the time and dedication to Leadville and I did it. I can do the same thing here in my corporate, or I guess not corporate world, in my businesses and my jobs and my career.
Oh wow, what kind of businesses are you like stepping into? Is it one? Is it multiple?
It's multiple. My wife owns a online sales where she sells health and wellness products, collagen. So I'm going to help her out with that a little bit. We have a travel brand that we're starting, and then I'm also doing some online affiliate marketing. And so just a few different kind of avenues we're going down, all in the name of traveling and living life and exploring the country while we drive in our new RV all over America.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I know you did some training through moving out of like your house to an RV with your wife and the doggo, um, which was I'm sure that was a lot. I have a bunch of questions here for you, but I guess I skipped ahead a little bit. If you wouldn't mind just giving like a broad introduction of who you are, also like
Yeah.
where you come from. You just talked about a little bit about like what you do career wise, like your running background, and also I was wondering like why Leadville? Because that's the race that you came to me with when we met back in April this year.
Yeah, you probably thought I was crazy when I said, "Hey, my name's Kevin. I want to do Leadville." I've never done a marathon before.
I didn't think you were crazy for that. I thought that this was definitely an audacious goal, given that you came to me in April and you were like, "So I'm running like once or twice a week, like a few miles." And I was like, "Okay, we need to like every single day like matters from here." Um, to me, that was like more that was a harder challenge. Like when I was creating your training plan, which for people out there, if you're interested in a training plan, I customize them 100% from scratch, and that's what I did with yours. But
Yep.
I spent a lot of time on your training plan because I was like, how do I bring this up to a mileage and an intensity level? And we talked about a lot of things, miles, vert, like speed work, like making sure we're progressing at like a gradual rate enough that will like let your body improve but recover, and like putting that all together for a race for a 100 miler like Leadville with like basically 4.5 months to get you there was definitely a challenge. That was a lot of fun on my part, but I asked you a question, so you got a lot
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
elaborate on. Who are you? Because I know I got a lot of friends who are going to listen to this, and they would love to hear your background, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. My name's Kevin. I grew up in Wisconsin. I'm 29 years old. I moved out to Colorado 10 days after I graduated college. It was the best decision I ever made. Fell in love with the mountains, fell in love with the outdoors. Um, Camping, hiking, backpacking, hunting is a big one for me. And so I really planted my flag out in Colorado. What else? I grew up playing soccer. Soccer is a passion of mine. I always enjoyed running to a degree. Typically, a run for me was anywhere from 3 to 10 miles, and doing a 10-mile run would be like, oh, I'm gonna go. I got time. I'm gonna go out and do a big 10-mile run today, and that was an accomplishment. I felt good about that. That was a big day. So by no means am I a runner. I'm pretty fast, or at least I was pretty fast in high school and everything, but I never did cross country. I never did track. Soccer was always my passion.
Yeah, I find it funny that you and my friend Brian Steiner, he was on episode 11 here, who also ran Leadman twice, and I don't think he still considers himself a runner, even though both of you have finished Leadville. I just find it interesting when people run a 100-miler and they like don't consider themselves a runner.
I really wouldn't. Like, I don't know. Like
Yeah,
first off, I have an admission I have to make. I haven't done a run since Leadville. I have to get that off my chest.
oh, it's okay. You're only a month out from your first one, so.
But I have been starting to think about running again. I almost went and ran this morning. That way I could just tell you I ran this morning, keep coach happy. But
No, man, I think I didn't run after my first 100 for like a month. I think I want to say it was like an Achilles issue, so I just took a lot of time off. But I mean, that's normal after your first one, especially.
okay, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I do enjoy weightlifting, and through the 4.5-5 months that you and I worked together and did this race, I gave up the upper body lifting, which has always been a big part of my life.
Mhm.
And so I'm excited to get back in the gym. Sarah and I, my wife and I, have gotten through this transitional period of being in the RV and getting out of our old house and everything. And of course, finishing Leadville. So now it's time to get
Mhm.
back into the gym and put some muscle mass on because I'm as skinny as I've been in a long time.
Yeah. No, it's when you're training for a big race like Leadville and you only have a certain amount of time with like the busy schedule that like obviously you had. The question becomes like, what is going to be the most effective workout today that's going to get me to the finish line in August? So it's hard to fit in like the upper body stuff when at the end of the day for runners it's mostly aesthetic in the short term. In the long term, I always try to tell people like work out everything because as we age, we lose muscle mass gradually and naturally. So it is important that like we all try to focus on that at least a little bit. But what's why Leadville when you came to me? Like how did you hear of it? Like were you aware of ultras before Leadville? How did you choose that race?
Yeah, that's a great question. Why Leadville? If I recall, the first time I heard about Leadville, I believe was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I think he may have been interviewing David Goggins or possibly Courtney DeWalter, but I think it was David Goggins. And if he was talking about Leadville, if he was talking about a different race, but I remember I was in the car driving through Utah and I just thought, wow, like, I wonder if I could do that. And then that snowball just started rolling in my head of, yeah, I've hiked 20 miles in a day before, so maybe I could run. I don't know if I could. And there's that kind of that mental, can I do it or not?
Mm-hmm.
And a buddy of mine, Mason, also listened to the same podcast, and Mason's a little crazy too. I love him. And so Mason and I got to talking, and we're like, hey, let's go out and try this. And so obviously Leadville being in Colorado close to home, we looked at the Leadville course online. We're like, oh, well, let's go run Leadville. And we don't know anything about ultra marathoning. This is in, I think, October 10th, give or take. So Mason and I go out to the start of the Leadville course and we just start running. And we run around Turquoise Lake and up through that trail after Turquoise. And then we come down somewhere near Powerline. I don't think we did the exact course because we didn't know what we were doing. But we
Mm-hmm.
came out somewhere down by Outward Bound and got into like some swampy, marshy stuff. And anyways, we ended up stopping after like mile 40, and we came back down to Denver. We slept for 8 hours and then woke up the next morning and ran 60 miles around the Cherry Creek Trail. And
Mm-hmm.
he and I did 100 miles, and we did it in 43 hours. And so we're like, oh, we're celebrating, we did it. But there was still we didn't actually do an ultra marathon like they were talking about on the podcast,
Like an official race.
like an official race, exactly. And so without knowing, I signed Mason and I up for Leadville without him knowing. I just signed us both up. Well, and by
And
signing up, enter the lottery.
wait, so like what year was this?
So I did the race in 23, 22. I would have been signing up in 21, I think.
So you did that run in 2021?
I think I did that run in 2020,
2020.
signed up in 2021, because then Mason and I deferred in 20. No, we would have deferred 22 and then did the race in 23.
Okay.
So my dates are a little scrambled, but either way, I signed him up without him knowing. And then we somehow got picked and got selected to run Leadville. And he got the email and I got the email, and I called him right away. I was like, check your emails. And he's like, he's out on a run in Florida. How perfect is that? He's out on a run. And I'm like, check your emails. He's like, no, bro, you didn't. There's no way. I was like, I did. We're doing Leadville, buddy.
Oh, because you can
And
sign
it
up
was
as
just,
like a pair there, right?
what's that?
You can sign up like two people as like a group for Leadville, right?
Yeah, it was something like, and it was so long ago now. It was like, hey, my buddy and I are entering. It was, I think, take both of us or don't take either of
Yeah,
us.
yeah. I think that's pretty cool.
Um, and yeah, they took us, and we were gonna do it. And unfortunately, we deferred in 2022. We just weren't ready. And then he backed out, and I knew I needed a coach. I didn't know anything about running, let alone ultra marathoning. And just to have someone give me the structure of what I need to be doing up until this race, I needed help. And I recognized that early on.
I appreciate that. It's always good when you have a friend, like it was Mason, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always good when you have a friend who can support your dumb ideas. And like
What
going
good
out
friends
and
do.
running 100 miles. You ran that in 20. So you basically ran 100 miles though. I know it wasn't in like an official race setting, and I know it took you a little longer, I think, than you were hoping for. But you ran 100 miles with. Did you even train for that, or did you just like do it on a whim?
No, we just did it on a whim. But like I said, we did sleep during the middle of it. And still, though, like it was a cool accomplishment. Mason's got a big post on Facebook about it. I guess I could find the date. But
Hmm.
it was so cool to do it with him. And it was a lot easier doing it with someone.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I enjoyed doing the first part of it by myself because I think you get some of that mental toughness individually.
Yeah.
But I think it was probably easier with someone, just to bounce feelings and just talking off of.
Yeah, and that's mental toughness is something I wanted to talk to you about because even though you came to me like we just talked about like in April, like not a whole lot of training under your belt, and we had like 4.5 months to get ready for the race. The one really big thing that stood out to me was when you told me the story about running the 100 miles with your friend, was that I was like, okay, he's gone out, he's been on his feet for like 43 hours. He's like run 100 miles basically without training. Like he's got that intangible like mental toughness that it's something that like I can work on with people, but like I can talk as much as I want or like ask people as many questions as and like what's your why and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, like if somebody is really in the pain cave and they decide to quit, I can't just like change people's minds. Like I can't instill like a certain amount of mental toughness into people like that.
Yeah,
But
it's
like
hard to
you came
teach
to me with
that.
yeah, you came to me with that natural intangible, and I was like, okay, he's got like a really big like factor working for him. So this could be really good. I was wondering, where does that come from for you? Like, is it something that's natural? Is it something that was honed over time? Like, I mean, that obviously, like watching you run Leadville was inspiring. It was really cool to see that, like, that trait of yours show itself at the 100 miler last month. But like, where does it come from?
Man, I don't know. That's a good question. I think I had a lot going for me with Leadville. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit, but like
Mhm.
intertwining your goals and why I did the race. I'm sure we'll talk about the note card.
Yeah,
And so writing things down on the note card really helped me reflect on like what this race meant to me and what it meant to, I guess, why I was doing it. But the mental toughness aspect, I don't know. That's a great question. I guess finding beliefs or finding self reasons of why you're going to do it and deciding you're going to do it. Like I decided I was going to do this race. I invested in a coach. Obviously your time's not free, and we spent a lot of time together. And so just investing on the front end, knowing I was ready, knowing why I was doing it. eh, Yeah, that's a tough question.
Yeah. Do you think that mental toughness is something that people can hone?
What do you mean hone? Like can learn or can
Can learn, yeah.
yeah. If you want to. You have to really want to though. You kind of alluded to it. You can't sign up with a coach who's just gonna give you mental toughness. You somewhere deep inside you, you have to find it. I'm sure
Mhm.
it's in everyone. I bet it's in everyone. It's probably deeper in others than everyone, but I think it's in there. And I think if you decide you want to do something, you just have to find a way to kind of bring it out to the surface
Yeah.
and find your why. And maybe coaches can help with that. I bet coaches can help you find it, but ultimately you're going to have to be the one to find that toughness inside you.
Yeah. I like it. You want to talk a little bit about the race?
Yeah. Jeez, where do we start?
Well, I'll let you kick that one off.
I think we should start pre-race, which was
Okay.
kind of what you and I did a little bit, and the training program. The training program was my map, and without that map, there's no way I would have. I don't think I would have started because it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm going to train for this race," but without a map and a plan, it's really easy to wake up on Friday morning and say, "Oh, you know what? I want to get done with work early because I'm going out tonight or I'm going camping this weekend. So I'm not going to run today. I'll just run extra on and with that map though, and with Stefan calling you, hey buddy, did you get your race done? Hey buddy, I'm checking Strava. Did you do your run on Strava? It was awesome just to have a roadmap as well as a partner to plan our attack for doing this race.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's I don't know, I'm not like super on top of people in terms of like I don't text them after every single run. I certainly did not do
No,
that with
no.
you, but it was like in our we met bi-weekly, and every here and there was like, "Hey, what happened this week?" or "This was a really good training run," or I would do try and get more vert in this day or this week.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
of. The call where you're like, "Hey, buddy, you're doing good on miles, but I need you to start going up more,
Yeah.
start doing more vert." And so the very next morning, I woke up at like 4:30, and I ran up Mount Morris. I'm like, "I'll show him vert. I'm gonna go up Mount Morrison today."
Yeah, but you did it on like a morning where it had like rain the night before and it was like slippery up there, which
It was
I'm not.
dangerous up there.
I was like, fuck, if this guy fell, there goes my coaching career.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, how did that I guess what's your like biggest advice if somebody's training for Leadville, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you would give them leading up to the race?
If you're not an ultra marathoner, if or even if you're not a runner, hire a coach. Find some, or at least find a friend who's done one or knows what they're doing, or just ask for help. And I think I've taken this into my life in some other areas too. Is there you just have to accept certain people are better at certain things, and why not partner with those people, and why not align yourself with those people. And that was one of my takeaways from Leadville after working with you was I couldn't have done this without a partner and without a coach. So that's my biggest piece of advice is whatever you're doing, whether it's Leadville or a 5K or not even a race, whatever you're doing, just go find someone who's professional, who has experience, and talk to them. And if you can partner with them or have them coach you, even better.
I like it. What's the biggest or what's the most impactful piece of advice that you received that helped you at Leadville that did not come from or me or have to do with like a coach?
Well, I know my answer that came from you, which was micro decisions.
Hmm.
I don't know if we'll talk about that now or later, but that didn't come from you? I watch a lot of YouTube videos.
Hmm.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos on anything I'm about to do. So I'm about to travel next week, and I've watched every video on Dubai and Bali I can find, just because I like to know what I'm going in for. I want to do everything I can. Um, and so I don't throughout all the YouTube videos, visualization that helped me visualize what the race was going to be like, what I can expect, and seeing myself doing it all.
Hmm.
So I think visualization, I think one of the videos I watched, and you and I touched on that too, but one of the videos I watched helped me with that visualization.
Nice. I like it. So visualization, biggest
Yep.
piece of advice.
Yeah, that didn't come from you. That
That
came from
didn't.
you. Micro decisions.
There we go. The micro decisions, when you say that, just refers to we talk a lot about how every decision, no matter how small, impacts how your race goes, whether that's aid station transitions, eating on the move instead of at an aid station, um, like how many socks and shoe changes you're going to do, like, am I going to pick up the pace here? Every single time you run 100 feet to that next tree, even if you give yourself relief at that next tree and you start walking, that's another 100 feet that you ran, and that's another few seconds that you just took off your time. And if you do that like 100 times throughout a race, especially a 100 miler, a lot of people are going to do a lot better.
The
It
100
reminds me of
feet.
that. Yeah, it
That
reminds me of that Carl Meltzer podcast. I always recommend the Carl Meltzer Training for Ultra podcast to people who are training for their first 100 miler, because he talks a lot about, and I think you listen to this one. He talks a lot about, like, if you're gonna move forward, you might as well run, because if you're going to be in pain running or walking, then you might as well get to the finish line a little bit faster. Um,
that
as
makes a lot more sense now.
So it's stuff like that. But also you ran a 55K about 6 weeks, I think, or 7 weeks before Leadville. How did that bode for you in your training physically and mentally?
Yeah, the 55K was the last call 55K in Fairplay, Colorado on July 9th. And that was my first official race ever. Um, and so I showed up and didn't really know what to expect, but just started running. And I it was going really, really, really well until like mile 21. There was a big uphill right before I saw you, because Stefan was working one of the aid stations at the top of the hill there, and that hill kicked my butt a little bit. But overall, ended up finishing it, I think 7.5 hours, and got fifth place out of like 16 or 20 or something, which I was really happy about and proud of. But it mentally, it kind of had the reverse effect. And I think I remember telling you this. I got done with, and don't quote me on this, 34 miles. I think
Hmm.
it was 34 miles. And I was hurting. My knee was hurting. I just felt tired. It was really hot. And I've never done a race. And I think I was going a little bit too fast throughout it. And so mentally I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do 100 miles. And it kind of like put some self-doubt into me, where it should have been a training race to hopefully bolster my confidence or boost my confidence. And it almost had the inverse effect.
Yeah, I found that interesting, because I think your original question to me when we met was, should I do a 50 miler beforehand? And we weighed the options of a 50 miler versus like a 50K type race, and decided on last call 55K. But yeah, I think it goes to show you, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier in our conversation, but like once you finished Leadville, your body also kind of just shut down. And I think it goes back to the fact that if we tell ourselves we're trying to go a certain amount of distance, then our body and our mind in particular will find a way to get us there. And I always think
Yes.
of I'm actually drinking out of my Leadville Marathon cup
Nice.
from like 2019, but I ran that race in 2019 as a lead up to my first 100K. And I remember finishing the race and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to run 100K if I feel the way I do right now? Like I've run like 1/3, a little, what, 26 over 62. I don't want to do math right now. But I was like, wow, I still have to do this again, plus another half marathon to finish my race. Like, how am I possibly going to do that? And I remember somebody at the finish line that I was talking to was like, your body will, and your mind will find a way to just give you the energy that you need to finish like the distance that you're doing. And that was really good advice. I don't know who that person was, but they were spot on.
It's so true. And look, in hindsight, doing the 55K was you have to do it. Like I couldn't recommend it more, especially if you've never done a race before, because it gave me the visualization and it taught me what you were explaining about aid stations and kind of you go out and train with your pack, but I feel like in a race, you get a better understanding of your gear, how a race works, how aid stations work, and it gave me some experience. So then when I stepped foot at the starting line of Leadville, I was still like a newbie, but at least I kind of understood like what I was going to see at an aid station
Mhm.
because prior to that, I truly didn't know like what to expect. And you had explained it, but just to do the race. So in hindsight, I would definitely recommend do some form of a race before you do your big race,
Mhm.
just to get the experience. Because at the very least, it should give you some confidence that hey, at least I did run 34 miles. But right after the fact, yeah, my body quit on me at 34 because that's all I had to do. And so my body gave me the 34 and crossed the finish line and then I quit mentally and physically,
Yeah.
which probably not coincidentally, same thing at Leadville. At Leadville at mile 99.8, I started like hobbling. And my knee had hurt before that, before mile
Mhm.
99.8. But at 99.8, like I kind of started hobbling a little bit on my right knee. And I don't know what it is inside of you that I don't know what that is. Why do I start hobbling at mile 99.8? I'm obviously going to finish. I came this
Mhm.
far, but like, is your body, is your mind that strong that you're just truly quitting somewhere in your body? I don't know. You experienced that in your races?
I haven't gotten to 99.8 where something decides to start hurting. But yeah, I mean, there's been a few. I've run through some injuries that I wouldn't expect other people to go through. Like at the Bear 100, if that race was any longer, I would have tapped out. Because I had a shin that. I mean, I was on crutches after the race because my shin like blew up. Um, and if that race was like any longer, I was like, this wouldn't have been worth it. Like literally, I knew on the last section, I was like, this is it. And I'm lucky that this is the last section. At like Bighorn, I had some feet issues with what's it called? Why am I blanking on the name?
Trench foot?
Yeah, trench foot. Thank you. Um, but I mean, and that was painful, but I probably could have kept going a little longer, even though it was terribly painful. I don't know. I haven't had anything shut down on me like that abruptly. Even at Cascade Crest, I had my knee started hurting, but I just walked it in for like 20 something miles. So I mean, I've walked it in. I've like finished races in pain, but it's never
Well, and
kicked
my
in like
knee
that.
hurt before 99.8, but it was like at 99.8, just really, I don't know. It has to be something mental that was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm about done. Like this is all I have. This is all I can give. But it goes back to tell yourself you're gonna do it and tell yourself you have 100 to do,
Mhm.
and your body will give you 100.
Yeah.
Dude, just like at the 55K, I told myself I had to do 34, and at 34 miles, I was done then.
And your journey at Leadville was pretty crazy. I mean, you came into we have to talk about this. You came into
We
Twin
do.
Lakes at 9:50 p.m. on the way inbound, like going back to at mile 62 to the towards the finish at 9:50 with a 10 o'clock cutoff. And just for people who aren't familiar with the story out there, because I've told a lot of my friends, um, but so I asked the aid station volunteer at Twin Lakes, does he need to get across the mat before 10, or does, like, if he crosses the mat, can we like give him aid like after the Twin Lakes mat, because there's a little bit of space before you get onto the trail and go in the woods and stuff. And we're like, can we like help him? And hypothetically, if he left at like 10:05, would he be fine because he crossed the mat like before 10? And like, yeah, that's fine. He just needs to cross the mat before 10 o'clock. So you cross it at 9:50 and then leave at 9:59, which was just insane. Can you walk people up to that point in the race? I mean, there's a lot that happens in 62
Yeah.
miles. Like, what was your 100-miler like up to that point? And then I'd love to talk a little bit about like that back half, which I was able to do with you.
Yeah. All right. So start at 4 a.m., super naive, and just start running. And so get to mile 12, not a big deal. It did get a little backed up on 11 with 800 people starting at the same time. It got a little backed up at mile 11. But mile 12, feeling good, first aid station. Get to mile 23, great to see my wife and my mom, who are my crew at 23, have a quick break, 5-6 minute aid station at 23. Keep going. That would be half pipe and pipeline miles. Oh, what is that? 30? I think that's about 30 or so. No, man, it's only been a month and I'm already blanking
I
on
think it's
this.
29.
29. Okay. And then, so it was actually kind of hard going from pipeline down to Twin Lakes. You
Okay.
lose a bunch of elevation at the very end, all the elevation we had to gain.
Yeah.
That was, it was kind of hot. It was getting that like mile 34 mark. Yeah, that'd be about right. Mile 34. Cause then you get to Twin Lakes at mile 38. So I got to Twin Lakes at 38.
Wait, so was that descent like hard? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the descent was hard. It's kind of loose, sandy, gravelly trail.
Hmm.
Um, and the sun's starting to come out because it was about 11:30 or noon
Hmm.
at that point, and so the sun's starting to get overhead and beat down on you a little bit. You've done 34 to like 37 miles, 38 miles. So that was tough. I didn't like
Yeah.
that last 3 miles coming down into Twin Lakes.
Oh,
So I was very relieved to get to Twin Lakes at mile 38.
talking about descents, what was it like going down power line that first time, just to back it up a little bit?
I went as slow as I possibly could, and within reason, right?
Right.
Um, I'm so glad I had hiking poles. You or trekking poles. You encouraged them. I practiced with them, especially on the back half of my training. I don't think I would have finished Leadville without trekking poles. They were a lifesaver. And so coming down pipeline, I was digging those poles into the earth, trying to stab through the earth with those poles, and just all my weight was on them and just trying to keep the weight off my quads. Um, and so it was fine coming down it. That part didn't bother me. Going up it, we'll talk about it, but going up
But
wasn't as fun.
I was wondering, were there a lot of people just like bombing that downhill, like 20 miles into the race?
Yeah, yeah, and they weren't like full out sprinting, but they were going pretty quick down it. And I just heard your voice in the back of my head, pretend you know something they don't know.
I was just wondering what it was, because I haven't actually run Leadville yet, so I haven't really seen what a lot of people do in that section. But
Yeah,
I would
you could
think a
tell
lot of
people are
people
gaining.
who,
Yeah,
yeah, I think a lot of people are trashing their quads on a big downhill early in the race, which some people can handle later on, but a lot that backfires on.
yeah, definitely. So that wasn't too bad. Um, and then trying to do the same thing coming down to Twin Lakes at mile 38. So then I get aid at Twin Lakes at 38. I ate a decent amount of food at that point, but I was starting to get kind of flush in the face and starting to get pretty hot at that point.
Hmm.
And so then I leave 38, I cross the river, and I crossed the river in my shoes and socks, and then I sat down, took them off, and put on fresh socks,
Okay.
but put on the same shoes. And
Yeah.
so it didn't really do a whole lot for me because my shoes were soaking wet. I put on dry socks that instantly became wet because my shoes were soaking wet.
Yeah.
And so if I did it again, I think I would just take off my shoes and socks, cross the river, and then put my shoes and socks back on. Now, most people seem to have run through it with their shoes on and just dealt with it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I wanted dry feet, as dry as
Yeah.
possible. But
I would put it
it didn't work.
I'll put it this way. When I was on the Colorado Trail last summer and I took off my shoes and socks, I like my ankle rolled and hit a rock and
When you
I
were
got a
going through the
bone
water?
bruise. Yeah, when I was going through the
Ah,
water. So I'm happy you didn't take off your shoes and your socks
yeah,
at the crossing, because from here on out, that's not like something I would recommend to people.
yeah.
But yeah, you got Leadville on a pretty hot day. My guess is um, they would have dried out relatively quickly. But I know you are a bit shaded once you start going up Hope Pass, especially at the beginning.
Especially at the beginning. And that was from the bottom of Hope to the aid station at Hope was the worst part of the course for me. Um, I got, I don't know, I don't know if I was lacking anything. I'm trying to reflect back on if I was lacking nutrients or a certain something. I think I might have just been tired and the heat. The
Hmm.
heat killed me. I got passed by 99% of people going up Hope Pass. I was moving so slow. I should look back at my numbers, but they were bad. They I was okay coming in Twin Lakes. I think our goal was 12 or 12:30, and I was like with maybe 20 minutes after our goal. Like I
Yeah,
was where our goal should have been, but then I lost a lot of time going from the bottom Hope to the aid station at Hope.
right.
It was really tough, but to get myself through, I started having some of those negative thoughts of how am I going to tell people that I didn't finish? What am I going to tell people that I didn't finish? Um, and like, am I going to quit or am I just going to go and see if time expires? And if time expires, am I going to have to hike back down the hill or am I going to have to catch a bus or am I going to, and I just started having these bad thoughts of quitting, not finishing. What does that look like? How, like, am I going to do this race again? Am I going to try it again in a few years? But throughout that, I'm like, well, I'm not going to quit. That's the one thing I'm not going to do is tell people that I set my poles down and I quit. Like if time runs out, then fine, I'll deal with it, but I'm not just going to throw in the towel. And so I just kept walking one foot in front of the other and it was slow, but I didn't stop because I knew I don't have time to stop, especially going this slow. So I just put one foot in front of the other to get to the aid station and finally passed those llamas, got to the aid station, sat down, and I was just like, give me all the caffeine you have in this tent. Because Stefan said I wasn't supposed to have caffeine until mile 62, but I don't give a shit what he said. Pardon my language. I am eating caffeine right now. It might be my only hope.
Well, I also told you, like, if you're coming up against cutoffs, then like you do everything in your absolute power to like get to the next aid station,
That was my
because
thought.
you like don't have a night section to get through if you can't beat the cutoffs, like going up Hope Pass and back. So it's like that is your race. Like that is the only race that matters, is getting to the next aid station at that in a situation like that.
And that's exactly what I did. I I ate I think some ramen there. I sucked down some caffeine gel packets, some caffeine rehydrate energy energy drink or whatever. And then it was only zero point 0.7 miles to the summit of Hope Pass and the tallest point on the course.
Hmm.
And I knew I could do zero point 0.7. When you're thinking about 100, 0.7 just sounds like the easiest thing in the world. I don't
Yeah.
care how steep it is. I can do 0.7 miles. So I was like, all right, well, I at least got to get up there and then I can just go downhill. So I got up there, um, went downhill the backside of Hope, which gets really steep on the backside.
Hmm.
Um, but then once you kind of hit the valley more or less, it kind of levels out as you go down the valley towards Winfield.
Hmm.
And luckily I had practiced that, which I think is another important thing to mention. You recommended I practice that and do that, which I had done 5 weeks prior to the race, maybe.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I knew what,
you live in Colorado, so it's like you have no
no,
excuse to not. If anyone
yeah,
is running Leadville and they don't go up and down Hope Pass at least once, like, and you're running Leadville, like, what are
shame
you
on you.
doing in training? Yeah, like
Yeah,
you live here. Like people should be doing that if they live here.
at least once. And I did the front side twice and the whole thing once. So happy I did. Because again, going back to visualizing, I knew once I got to the top of Hope, I could see what I had to do to get to Winfield. And so I knew what I was up against, and that gave me some confidence knowing what I was about to do for that next 6 miles. It's
Hmm.
about 6 miles from the top of Hope to Winfield. Um, so yeah, did that. Got to Winfield at 5:30, 5:35, and left Winfield at 5:40, with the cutoff being 6 p.m., which is kind of too late to be at Winfield. Like you
Hmm.
should probably be at Winfield a lot, not a lot, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable being at Winfield at 5 versus 5:30.
Yeah, I mean, you did something that the vast majority of the field will not do, which is you negative split your time uh, back to Twin Lakes, meaning that you ran up and over Hope Pass and down on the way back faster than on the way out to Winfield. And that's crazy for two reasons. Number one, you have extra miles and vert on your legs. But number two, the coming up from the Winfield side is a lot steeper. So a lot of people will tell you that that side is harder to do.
On the official Leadville pacing chart, I think they give you an extra 15 or 30 minutes.
Hmm.
What they recommend, or their basis for pace, is an extra 15 or 30 minutes on that backside
Hmm.
because it is that much steeper. But when you're up against the clock, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, no, it's like that is your race. Like you have to go all out there because it's like it doesn't matter if you have energy and you didn't hit the cutoff because like if you have energy and you don't hit the cutoff, then you still don't have a race.
And thinking about it, I think some of the mental toughness that we mentioned earlier, being competitive, helped that, because now I'm at Winfield at 5:40. I
Hmm.
have 4 hours and 20 minutes to go up and over the pass again. And so now some of that competitiveness started coming out. And I was like, oh man, like, can I do this? Like, I want to do this. Like, I really want to get there. I came this far. I did 50 miles. Like, I don't want to throw in the towel now. It's like, let's see if I can do this. And that I felt a little energized in a way, kind of being up against the clock and putting pressure on myself. And
Hmm.
that, in my mind, I'm breaking it down into smaller goals. All right, well, if I can get to the top of Hope Pass here, all I have to do is run 5 miles straight downhill, which
Hmm.
I did as fast as I could. Um, and yeah, so eventually get up and over Twin Pass. I sprint down Hope Pass, excuse me, Hope Pass down across the river. And then at that point, I could like smell Twin Lakes, and it's 9:40, and I have to be to Twin Lakes at 10, and like just started power walking as fast as I possibly could because I knew I was gonna be okay. And my phone was dead. Did I ever tell you my phone died?
Yeah, yeah.
You
Well,
knew
I had
that.
your phone on me and they uh Sarah and your mom had like a portable charger and I like tried plugging it in when we
Oh, and
were
yeah,
running together, but like your phone wasn't really like picking up a charge. And then when it finally did and we like checked your messages at one point, it like immediately died or like
yeah,
went down to like
yeah.
1% all immediately.
So I'm coming down Hope Pass with no phone, which means, and I don't wear a watch. I didn't invest in a watch just because I didn't know how much running I would do or not.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't have a phone. I didn't have any way to tell time. And so I'm like, and there's not a ton of people on the course at this point anymore, because people didn't make cutoffs, dropped out, or are ahead of me. I bet I was probably one of the last 10 people to make it up and over Hope Pass
Hmm.
and still finish.
Yeah.
But so I didn't have the time, and I'm going down Hope trying to figure out, like, am I gonna make it or not? So I'm asking every single person on the course, what time is it? What time is it? I'm like, all right, I think I'm good. So I'm power walking into Twin Lakes, and you can just start to hear the murmur of the crowd,
Yeah.
and you can start to see the lights, and then you're getting closer, and you can start hearing people starting to cheer, and my adrenaline is just fueled at this point. And I came in just, oh, I wanted to pound on my chest. I was so excited, even though I was one of like the last people to get there. And I see you, and that's relief right there. We start running, we cross the mat, we sit down, and I'm just like, what is going on? Where am I? Obviously, I knew like what am I doing right now? This is amazing. And that was the most fun part of the race for me, was coming into Twin Lakes. And I remember you said, like, look around, buddy, like this is the best aid station in all of ultra marathoning.
Yeah.
And that meant a lot to me, that it's like, oh, like I'm doing the Super Bowl of this event. Like this is the Lamborghini. Like it was just so much fun.
Well, it's like we knew that you just had to cross the map by 10, and we had 10 minutes. So I was like, I could just tell him to take off his pack and I could take it and run through the aid station, but like he's got to enjoy the experience too. Like,
I did. It
yeah.
was my favorite part for sure. And then we sit down, and you guys start going to town on filling bottles, and taking Sarah, my wife, swapped my shoes, and you started like talking about, hey, here's what's going to come up next. And then you just hear that cowbell banging in the distance, telling people to
Yeah.
get out of the aid station. And I can still hear that bell. People are just, it's like, you have to go, get out of here.
Yeah.
And so we get all our stuff together, and then you and I start off on mile 62 to 100.
Yeah. And your crew was like really dialed in. I was very impressed with like how organized I thought like your mom and Sarah were. Um, like you guys were super dialed in. Like one person was on like bottles, like one person was on your feet, like another person was giving you like calories, or I think the jobs were divided up, but it was all like
Yeah.
very well organized. And I mean, for you to change shoes, get like hydration on you, eat and get to go calories in 9 minutes at um, Twin Lakes, I thought was really impressive. And then all of your aid stations that I know I wasn't at Leadville earlier in the day with you, but it seemed to me that you guys were really dialed in on that aid station efficiency, which is something we had talked a lot about leading up to the race, just trying to make sure as little time as possible is spent like sitting around. Um, but yeah, I was really impressed. Like, what was that? What were those conversations with your family like? Sorry, can you hear that behind me?
No.
Okay. Okay, that's good. The mic's not picking up. Sounds like there's construction or a garbage truck or something. Uh, anyways, like, what were those conversations with your crew like before the race? Did you have conversations? Did you like practice? Like, what going through an aid station was going to be like? What was that like for you?
Yeah, kudos to them. My mom flew out from Wisconsin to crew with my wife, so that was my crew, the two of them. None of them had done any crewing in any event before, and they did a tremendous job. And we sat down the day before the race, 2 days before the race, and just went through as much as possible with the map, with what each aid station was, where it was, whose responsibility, who was doing what. And they took it to heart. Like, who, for me personally, like, I wouldn't rather have anyone else in my corner besides my mother and my wife. Like, who's going to take care of you the best? Like, mom and wife. And so they were there, and they did such a great job, um, with everything, giving me everything I needed, buying in on the event, being at every aid station, knowing where to go. And I think another important thing we did was the three of us went and drove around the course
Hmm.
as much as possible. And I said, okay, this is pipeline. and like everyone recognized what pipeline is, and that way I could visualize, but also they could know, they could visualize of where am I supposed to go, what's it going to look like,
Hmm.
and I think that helped them too. So
Yeah.
not a ton of prep with them. We weren't having team meetings. Well, I guess you, Sarah, and I met, which I think was valuable, but
Hmm.
not like crew meetings or anything besides right before the race.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because like an unwritten rule in like ultra running is that like you don't take your family to races because your family doesn't want to see you in like some of the pain that you're in at an ultra, but it ended up working out pretty well for you, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned that, but man, as not an ultra marathoner and not a runner, there's no one else I'd rather have. Like I was looking
Yeah.
forward to getting to that aid station and seeing those two people, like people I love and people I want to make proud. Like like love my buddies too, but if I get to the aid
Yeah.
station and my buddies are there, like drinking beers and like I don't know, talking crap and everything, I don't I didn't write them on my note card. On my note card, I wrote like my parents, my brother, my wife,
Hmm.
and like seeing them at each aid station also gave me inspiration to keep going.
Yeah, and when you say no card, you're referring to we had talked about like writing down the things that matter to you and that drive you before the race so that when you reach a tough time, it's really easy to like forget like who you are, what's driving you, like why you're a badass basically before you go do something hard because when you're in the moment of doing something hard, the only thing it's just really easy to get sucked into the narrow scope of what you're doing and forget about all the evidence that you have that you can do something.
Yeah, and I put on my note card my family, my buddy Mason, who didn't have the opportunity to do
Hmm.
this race like I did, due to some personal stuff. He ended up not doing the race, so I was
Yeah.
running it for my family, for him, for me. I mentioned it earlier about being the runway to the next chapter of my life,
Yeah.
and doing this race to show myself that if I can do Leadville, I can do anything.
Hmm.
And so those are a few of the things on my note card. Doing it for Colorado in the mountains. Like I've fallen in love with Colorado and I've fallen in love with the mountains and they've given me this home and they've given me so many adventures and so many good times and good memories. Like I had this feeling of this is me giving back in a way.
Hmm.
And I think Leadville takes so much from you and you have to be willing to give so much for it. And so this was me saying thank you and giving a part of myself back to the mountains and back to nature of like, all right, here's all I have. I'm going to give you all I have to do this 100 miles. And it was such a good feeling.
That's that's beautiful. What
Yeah.
you had also mentioned to me that leadership was a part of your note card and what was driving you. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on like what does leadership mean to you? Because you had said that you wanted to be a leader for yourself and for others in your life.
Hmm.
I was wondering like what does leadership mean to you, and yeah, like what does it mean to you, and like why is it important? Like how do you define it, I guess, and why was that like a big driver for you?
Yeah. Leadership means to me when you're walking through the snow, it's hard to walk through the snow, right?
Yeah.
3 feet of snow, you got to drudge through it and really push through it. And it's being in the front's tough. Leadership to me means walking in the front of the line through the snow. It's the toughest role. You have to push through the snow. You have to pave the path for others. You have to show them it's possible. Whereas the people behind you have a little bit easier walk because as the leader, you took action and you pushed through the snow so others could do the same. And to me, doing Leadville was showing those closest to me, family and friends, that you can do anything you want. If you truly want to do it and you truly decide to do it, you can do anything you want. And so I wanted to be that leader and represent that to those around me that, hey guys, I set my mind to this. I dedicated myself. I trained and I did it. What are you guys kind of thinking about in your life? Do you want to move across the country? Do you want to open a business? Do you want to, whatever you want to do? I went and did it. My goal, you can do the same thing
Hmm.
if you decide and dedicate yourself to do it.
I like it.
Yeah.
So what was your race like after Twin Lakes? You were kind of quiet, and I don't know if it was because I know you had a lot of the what's it called, the trail cough. That's not really cough, but I know you were like, it was tough for you to like talk
It
a lot.
was. Well, as soon as we left Twin Lakes, I knew what was coming, and I was
Hmm.
very not looking forward to that section. Coming out of Twin Lakes is primarily uphill for what I think 8 miles or 9 miles
Hmm.
until you get to Pipeline. Um, so I wasn't looking forward to that. It was 10 o'clock at night at that point. You just run 62 miles. And then on top of all that, I really noticed my trail cough and my throat at around mile 68, 69. And I just felt like my throat was swelling shut.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it was from all the dust or you mentioned sometimes if you suck on the water
Oh yeah.
bottles, it creates like almost a helium effect. Do you want to elaborate on that at all or just?
Oh, I think I was just saying that if you have a bottle that you're sucking on and you're sucking on it really hard for like a long ultra, like 100 miler, at a certain point, like I mean, most of us are not sucking on bottles like in our daily life. So our throat, I think, when you are doing that motion over and over again, you can end up with like a bit of a sore and maybe even like inflamed throat
Yeah,
after a
some
race.
yeah, inflamed or swelling. And I think that might have been my case because I could get about 80% of the water out of each chest pack water bottle,
Yeah.
500 milliliter water bottle. But then that last 20%, I'd really like to suck as hard as I could to try and get the fluids out. And
Hmm.
so I gotta wonder if it was like that helium inflammation swelling effect, like almost like a hickey or something, like
Yeah.
in my just causing my throat to swell. So that was hurting at mile 69. Um, Especially that's when I noticed it. And then after that, I enjoyed the section after half pipe from half pipe to outward bound.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good section. You and I made some good pace.
Yeah, we moved pretty well. We passed a lot of people. There were not like a whole lot of people that passed us in those sections, if any.
I don't think anyone passed us in those sections.
Yeah, which was a good sign because I didn't really look at the results and I don't know everyone that we passed, but I have to wonder like how did us moving well there affect you finishing versus probably some of them not.
I think you're absolutely right. I made a friend who's from South Dakota, and so I was able to look him up on the results, and he unfortunately didn't finish, and he was one of the
Mm,
guys we passed. But you had a goal for us, like if we saw a headlight or a headlamp in the distance, we had to pass that headlamp. And competitive Kevin really liked that. And so as much as I didn't want to move quickly, we'd see the light and you had said like, hey, we got to pass headlamps. Like you had a different word for it, but chasing headlamps or
I think I told you like I had a coach in high school who was uh he was a little bit out there, but he used to joke. He like said one day like I don't care who I pass. Like if I'm running a race and I pass a 5-year-old or an 80-year-old woman, they're just another person that I'm better than. And I thought
I
I think I'd like told you that story.
think you
Um
did. And
so it was kind of just trying to look at it like from a competitive
yeah,
like viewpoint.
but in all serious, you have to find whatever advantage you can at mile 62 at midnight, mile
Hmm.
70 at midnight, whatever it is. You have to come up with stuff like that. And being a competitive person, that helped me. And
Hmm.
so passing those people between 70 and outward bound, which was 77, really helped. And then sat down at outward bound, had a little chafing on my behind,
Hmm.
got some lotion for that, ate some ramen, and then it was time to do power line. And power line was also one of my least favorite parts of the course.
Why was that?
It wouldn't end. I'm pretty sure it spent like an hour and a half going from the bottom of power line up to what was the aid station that's unofficial?
Oh, there's Space Mountain.
From going from the bottom of power line to Space Mountain. Oh, dude, mentally for me, that would not end. And I wasn't like a bad space about like, oh, like this is hard, I'm gonna quit. I was in like a pissed off, like, oh, like, just make this end. I don't want to do this section. I will run downhill. I will run on flat. I don't care. I'm just sick of going uphill right now because it was
Yeah, I mean,
constant uphill.
you were like pretty quiet in that section, and I was like, I can't tell. Like, I was like, is he mad at me? Like, is he like doing okay? Every time I asked you, you were like, doing good. And I was talking to a few of the other runners around us and stuff. Because I knew like your throat hurt. I was like, I don't want to like bother him too much. And it was hard to like tell where you were at. So it's interesting to hear like your
Yeah, no, I
perspective now.
appreciated you just letting me be in my space because it could have been my wife next to me and I wouldn't have wanted to talk to her either. I was just like one using the poles to go up the hill. You got a cool video of me like crab walking, I called it. Like
Yeah.
sticking the poles out as far as I physically could just to try and get some leverage up the hill. Yeah, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted that to be over with. I'm getting mad thinking about it.
Well, I thought that video was really funny because I was like, "Do you have any words for your future self?" And you were just like, "You're welcome." And that was hilarious.
I didn't even think about it. You're welcome,
Yeah.
which is true.
uh,
Past Kevin suffered, so future Kevin can enjoy it.
yeah, you got to do Leadville again because we never got to take a shot together at Space Mountain.
A lot of work for one shot.
Yeah, I'm joking. There was another pacer that I was filling up your bottles, and there was another pacer that I was taking a shot, so I took one with him. So I got a shot, buddy.
Space Mountain looks super cool, and 99 times out of 100, I would have been right there next to you. But at that point, I didn't even quit walking. I gave you my water bottles, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep walking, and like
Yeah.
that's all I said, and I just kept moving, and I just wanted to be done. There was 20. You leave outward bound at 77, so at that point there was probably 18 to 20 miles left,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to get up that hill. And then so you get up that hill, you and I made really good pace coming down that hill. We passed a bunch of people,
Oh yeah, we did.
which was good. And then we got down to May Queen at mile 88 at 5:55. Cut off is 6:30. So we got there at 5:55. We had a really quick aid station and left at 6 a.m. sharp, I think it was.
Sorry about that.
And we left at 6 a.m. sharp, and the sun was starting to come up in the eastern skies, and that was a good feeling. The sun
Yeah.
coming up helped like calm me down. Like, all right, sun's coming up, 12 miles, and then I started talking a little bit more on that last 12 miles, and I was feeling a little sick from the caffeine, but I
Mhm.
was feeling better that last 12 miles.
Yeah. What was it like mentally knowing that at the closer we got, I remember like counting down the miles and the minutes, and I was like, at a certain point, it's like you have an hour and a half or something to go like 3 miles, like you basically got it. What was that like?
You were saying that, which I appreciated, because I had this fear inside me of like, what if I screw up on the last 5 miles? Like, what if I do like a 30-minute mile for 5 miles? Like, and I know you never would have let that happen, but I just had this inadequate fear of if I somehow screw up the last 5 miles. And so you saying that, I really appreciated it, and then which gave me a lot of comfort. And it wasn't about time. Like at that point, it wasn't about, I don't care if I get there at 29 hours or 30 hours. Like I
Mhm.
just want to get there and be done with it.
Yeah.
The last 3.8, the last 3.8 makes me laugh. There's a sign at the bottom of that hill that says 3.2843 miles to go. And so in turn, you're like, oh, there's signs. I'm 3 miles away. Yes, I'm done. Like,
This man
woo, I
has
did it.
PTSD.
And then Leadville, and it's so perfect for Leadville. Those last 3.2 miles, 3.0 are uphill. And it was kind of like an extended long uphill.
Yeah, just one of those just annoying enough grades to be like, I want to
Yes.
run, but this is like just uphill enough where I don't want to, especially at mile like
Yes.
97.
Yes, exactly. And it was such a big middle finger from Leadville, which looking back, I love it because Leadville shouldn't end downhill. Leadville shouldn't be a flat road at the end of it. It was just like that last 3 miles of, all right, you think you did it, but guess what? You're still in Leadville and you're still going uphill.
Yeah.
And that was a long 3 miles too. But as soon as you hit the blacktop, as soon as I hit the blacktop, that's when some of the butterflies started to set in.
And we still pushed that last 3.
We did. Yeah, we did. You had me running, was it like run 0.1 miles, walk 0.1, run 0.1?
So there was this, I've paced Leadville twice before, but this was my first time doing the last section because my friend Brian wanted to run it in the other times with his dad. Fair enough. But I didn't know there was these. They put up signs that have like the winners from the Leadville 100 for every year from like the inception of the race until now. So every point one, I think it was, they had what are they called? Just like big signs up,
Yeah.
and it was perfect because we talk about micro decisions, and it was like, all right, we're at mile 98, but we're still making micro decisions to run from like this point one to the next point one, and then we'll walk to the next point one, and then run, and then walk, and that's how we did it for a lot of that last few miles.
Yeah. And just like the podcast you mentioned earlier, you have to keep moving forward, whether you walk it or you run it. You might as well run it. And that's where my head was that last 3 miles was like, I have to do this 3 miles. Let's just get it over with. I want it to be over with.
Yeah,
So we might as well run like these little sections as much as I can just to get it over with.
yeah. What's Here's a big question. What'd you do with the belt buckle?
Belt buckle's just in my drawer next to my bed. I'm gonna wear it. I've never worn a belt buckle, but I gotta wear it.
It's okay. I still don't have a buckle holder like belt. It's like a different type of belt.
It's a different type of belt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I got to start there, buying a new type of belt.
Yeah, me too,
It's
man.
so cool though. I love the belt buckle.
Yeah. They give you a big one.
Yeah, it feels pretty cool.
And you finished in 29. It was like 29 or 29:30, I think, exactly, or something.
Yeah, I think it was 29:30 exactly, and
Yeah.
a few seconds afterwards. And yeah, we crossed that finish line, and they announced your name, and I threw my hands in the air, and it was so fulfilling. And words can never describe the amount of fulfillment and self pride that I felt. But we're all hugging, and my mom and my wife, and even our dog, our German Shepherd, and you, of course, we all crossed the finish line together and got pictures. And yeah, man, it was awesome. Something I'll never forget.
Yeah. Well, it was really great to be out there with you. You were inspiring, man, to see you like push through. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was something. I'm very, very glad I did it. I'm very glad we did it.
Yeah. Well, I know we're coming up on like over an hour and like 10 minutes or something of recording now. So I want to be respectful of your time, but I do have a few last questions for you if that's
Yeah.
cool.
What do you got?
Cool. Let's see here. Let's go to the list. I always come prepared, man. I told you I had a lot of questions for you. Um, okay, so now that Leadville is over, I was wondering what's the biggest lesson that running the race, or that even training taught you as you move forward?
Find a professional or find a coach to help you with things you want to do. Decide if you're going to finish something before you start it. And micro decisions and training sometimes the little things you put in each day can result in something bigger in the future.
Hmm.
But you have to be patient. You have to accept that sometimes you have to do little things or little decisions in order to hit a big goal or do something big later on.
I like it. That was a really good answer. And I did not, for reference to people out there, I did not pay him to say that first part of the answer. I got another question for you. It's on here somewhere on my
I'm gonna try
question
and
list.
rapid fire my answers since we're running low on time here.
Oh no, this one's um well, this one you might want to expand on. I'd love it if you did. So I know you have really good. You're married to Sarah, and you guys. I follow her on Instagram now because you don't have one, but I try to keep up a little bit. And it seems that you guys are not only partners in like life, but also in like business. I was wondering what it's like having somebody who seems so with like a really entrepreneurial and go-getter mindset in your life. I was wondering how that played into your success at Leadville and like how that impacts you as a person. I'm sure that I would think that is a really good motivator every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife has given me so much courage to go do things that I may normally not do. Um, and Leadville is probably something that I would do, but just seeing my wife do things out of the ordinary, and being an entrepreneur, she really has just given me some courage and some confidence to go kind of take like a little bit different path. I mean, heck, we live in an RV now. If you would have told me I would live in an RV 10 years ago, no way. But yeah, she's just given me a lot of inspiration. Um, and now she's not running marathons, but she's running a business and she's doing all this other crazy stuff that a lot of people wouldn't do or don't normally do.
Mhm.
And so just having a partner like that has been, it's opened up my world quite a bit. And it goes back to like get a coach, but also surround yourself with people who are crazy and who do what you want to do and who you look up to and inspire you. I would kind of elaborate on that is find those people and align yourself with them. Hell, you're running Moab 240. You're the first person I ever met running the Moab 240. And so that just sets that bar of like, hey, I know people that run the Moab 240. Maybe someday. I don't know. Like it's not a goal of mine. I don't think I'll ever do it, but it's just cool that to find people like that.
It's okay. I said after my first 100, I would never run another 100 again. But here we are going for Moab. This will be my second time there. But
Yeah. You've asked me a few times. I don't know if there's another 100 in my future.
well, that was one of my questions too. Like, what's next for you? As I know you said earlier, you don't define yourself as a runner. Oh, one sec. My cat is tangling up my headset here. um, but you said you don't define yourself as a runner. But I was wondering, do you see ultra running as part of your future? And you don't have to say yes just because you're being interviewed right now. But I was
No,
wondering, like, do you see yourself doing more races?
I'm gonna say no. Right now, I don't. But what I do see is I really enjoyed the training component of
Hmm.
what we did of ultra marathoning. And I could see myself trying to set another endurance-based goal.
Hmm.
And something I'm very, very loosely considering that I just saw online was you can bike ride around the entire country of Iceland.
Oh
And it's
wow.
like a 1,200-mile bike ride. And I don't think it's a race. I really don't know much about it. I don't think it's a race. I think it's more of just a journey or something you can do.
Hmm.
But finding that or something similar like that I can train for, because I did enjoy the training piece a lot more than I thought I would.
Hmm.
I was kind of despising it, but once you got rolling in it, it was kind of enjoyable to work towards a big goal each day.
Hmm.
And so I don't think I'll do another ultra marathon. At least that's my answer right now. But if I could find another endurance based goal, um, that would be that intrigues me.
Yeah, the bike one is interesting. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different I mean, you can go further on a bike, especially on the road.
Yep.
which means you can see more stuff. There's like Bike Across America, but that sounds like a lot of cornfields to me.
Yeah, just a lot of time. Sarah and I have a lot of other things we do and we work on, so
Yeah,
I'm not afraid to dedicate time, but biking across America might be like a month or something.
yeah. Which I don't know. That sounds a month outside sounds fun to me, but
Yeah. Well, if you want to bike around Iceland, let's get something on the books.
give me like 3 years. I need to finish I'm doing my dietetic internship right now. Nothing like doing an internship that's unpaid plus working plus training. So I'll have to build up some money before I can um, go to Iceland. But anyways, that's another story for another episode maybe. Um, I was wondering, so what is next for you in running in life? And I know you've kind of alluded to this stuff uh, in a lot of my previous questions, but like, what's the most immediate goal that you have coming up, and how can people follow you, keep up with you, or can they? Because I know you're not really an Instagram guy.
I'm not on social media personally, but I am on social medias via one of Sarah and I's businesses, Seven
Okay.
Travel, and Seven is a combination of Sarah and Kevin, so it's
Okay.
spelled Sevin. So just look up Seven Travel on whatever media platform you guys prefer. Tag along in our adventures. We're living in an RV. We leave for Dubai and Bali next week to go celebrate our 30th birthday together.
Aw.
We're working on a few other businesses, and we're just trying to take as much control of our own life. And I hope people can find some inspiration, whether it's adventure, travel, endurance, financial. I hope you can find some inspiration about taking charge of your own life from what Sarah and I put out there.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to just say to you is that like at the end of every episode, I try to make sure that I commend everybody for like what I admire about them. With you, I want to say you're really inspiring to watch at Leadville. I knew that you had mental toughness, like I said, like from the second I met you because of your story about just going out and running like 100 miles, like on a whim, really. So I want to commend you for your mental toughness. And like you said, uh, I think that you're a person who got that. I think that it's a skill that you accumulated. Maybe it was natural, but I think that it's a lot easier for you to be mentally tough because you're so open to learning and surrounding yourself with other people who are pushing themselves. So that's something I really admire about you. I also really admire your risk-taking abilities. I think that it's really audacious what you're doing. I mean, quitting your job, living in an RV, like doing things that a lot of people, including myself, would say are those are uncomfortable changes. Even if they're good changes, it's a lot of effort to that you're putting into pushing yourself, I think. I also think that you've obviously done taken a lot of time to be introspective about your Leadville experience and about your training. You obviously spend time like visualizing what you want to do and like planning it out ahead of time and being prepared for everything that you do and then reflecting on it. So, yeah, I really appreciate all that stuff about you. And I also appreciate you trusting me to be your coach for the Leadville 100. I don't think it came up in this episode, but you're the first person that I officially coached for a 100-mile race outside of some friends that were more. I try not to coach my friends for a variety of reasons, but you're the first person I professionally coached. And so I really appreciate you putting your trust in me for that. So thank you for that, and props to you on all those things.
Oh, of course, man. I really appreciate all that, and I I had no idea I was your first trainee, so I think it goes without saying. But it's been an awesome partnership. I would not and could not have done this without you, and hopefully it's the first of many of our adventures, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there's more out there that we can tackle. I got to bring you up that 14er in Aspen. I owe you that at least.
Yeah, I just did
But,
Kelso Ridge for the first time, which was my most exposed 14er, or the route, I should
well,
say.
I'm gonna bring you on the knife's edge on Capitol Peak next summer,
Oh gosh,
so we'll have some fun.
tentative.
Just don't tell my wife. She doesn't want me doing it again.
Yeah, we'll call it tentatively. I did the knife edge on Kelso, and I was like, that pushed me. That pushed
Yeah.
me, man.
Well,
Um,
hey, you pushed me. We got to keep pushing each other. That's how we get better.
yeah, fair enough, man. Is there I don't know, is there any last words or like topics or things that you wanted to touch on before we hop off here today?
For anyone listening, go do something crazy. And I said it on my wife's podcast, but go do something crazy. If that's running 100 miles, if that's going on a trip, if that's starting a business, if that's quitting your job, if that's talking to an old friend, whatever's crazy to you, go do something crazy. And I hope you can find that, and I hope you dedicate yourself to that, and just go do it. Take action.
I love it. Let's end it right there.
Absolutely, man.